Good morning. You're watching All You Need to Know on Bloomberg Quint Live, and I'm Alex Matthew. First, the headlines this morning. Asian markets are off to a quiet start as most markets return from an extended holiday weekend and await an earnings-heavy week ahead. Oil prices surged to a 6-month high after the US announced it would not renew waivers that allowed the purchase of Iranian crude. Blackstone Group will buy controlling stake in SL Propack. The 51% stake will be purchased at 134 rupees per share. And passenger growth in Indian aviation market grew at its slowest pace in 5 years in the fourth quarter, owing to grounded planes by Jet Airways and SpiceJet. And voters across 116 seats and 13 states will be exercising their right to vote in the third phase of the Lok Sabha elections today. Let's talk about the US markets now. They returned to trade after the long weekend on Monday. It was a bit of a mixed session as Boeing led the Dow Jones lower, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq ended at a 6-month high. Companies like Twitter, Facebook, Amazon, and Microsoft are all slated to report earnings this week. Ranita Young of Bloomberg News tells you what happened in that session on Wall Street in this report.
U.S. markets eked out a gain in Monday in light volume as investors prepare to receive more earnings news, and they're wondering if that most recent dovish policy tilt to the U.S. Federal Reserve will shore up enough global growth to be able to offset any deterioration in earnings. First quarter GDP is due out on Friday, so that should also give a clearer view of the U.S. economy. Oil's at a 6-month high after the White House said it will not renew Iran oil waivers that will expire in May. That helps send the Bloomberg Commodity Index up just a little bit, and the Bloomberg Dollar Index was also a little bit higher, as well as the U.S. dollar versus major currency competitors. Now, we did see a few movers here. Bed Bath & Beyond down, revamping its board, giving in to activist shareholders' requests, which has been pushing to replace the entire board and the CEO for some time now. Kraft Heinz seeing its new CEO and looking to break out of its prolonged slump that it had ever since putting in a bid to purchase Unilever 2 years ago. Tesla falling after an analyst downgrades the stock, and earnings continue, by the way. Halliburton posting first quarter earnings per share that beat estimates. That was for continuing operations. And Kimberly-Clark, the maker of Kleenex and Huggies, rallied after first quarter results beat analyst estimates as well. Coming up, we have Facebook, Amazon, Twitter, eBay, Microsoft, and Tesla earnings, among other companies this week. And that's a look at your Monday Wall Street action. In New York, I'm Ranita Young for Bloomberg News.
You know, those crude oil prices are what really dragged Indian markets yesterday. We'll get to that in just a moment. For now, let's take a check on the Asian markets. We're joined by Rosalind Chin from the Hong Kong studios, of course, the Bloomberg studios. Morning, Rosalind. Just looking at the screens, seemingly a little bit of weakness this morning, but a lot of earnings to look forward to.
Yes, it is a big earnings week in the US, of course, as well, and in Europe, and of course here in Asia as well. A lot of tech companies will be reporting, but I just want to look at what the markets are doing today, because we've just seen the MSCI Asia Pacific Index turn a little bit lower. It wasn't pulling that strongly into positive territory anyway, up by about 10%, but now it's losing 0.05% as Hong Kong and China come back online. Of course, Hong Kong had a break yesterday as part of the extended Easter break, but China ended lower yesterday. It looks like it's extending those losses today, and that is after really the world's best performing stock market, which is China, actually started turning into negative territory yesterday after it did look like China is looking less likely to keep pumping up that stimulus as the year goes on. Officials have indicated they're less comfortable about adding stimulus. They think that the economy may be faring better as the year goes on, and that, of course, is making investors a little bit nervous right now. The CSI 300 actually surged almost 40% this year. Investors, becoming very, very sensitive to seeing what the authorities are going to do, whether they're going to keep helping to stimulate the economy. Right now, it seems like the government is saying that extended support isn't needed, and there's a focus on deleveraging and avoiding speculation in the housing market. So a little bit tempering the market there. So we're seeing the Hong Kong HSI index losing about 0.5%, Shanghai Composite down by about 10%, a tenth of 1%. These CSI 300 down by 0.05% right now. And that is likely to linger because volumes this week are fairly thin. There was, of course, the Easter vacation. And next week, there will be an extended stretch, in fact, of public holidays in Japan. So between now and then, it's likely to see pretty thin volumes here in Asia for the next few days. Looking at Japan, as I mentioned, that market in the Nikkei is down by about 0.25%. Kospi is just about flat. We've got two stocks to look at there. One is Asiana Airlines, that is losing nearly 5%, down by 4.9% right now. That is after news this morning that creditors are planning to provide $1.4 billion to help bolster its balance sheet. And this is because the parent company, Kumho Asiana Group, wants to sell a controlling stake in the airline. Asiana saw its stock plunge 15% in one day last month. That's after an auditor raised concerns about its viability and financial figures. So Asiana today extending those losses down by nearly 5%. And Samsung, that actually is pretty flat right now, making gains of about 0.1%. But the news from Samsung is that it's delaying the rollout of its foldable phone, the Galaxy Fold. That is after there were issues with the actual phone itself, with the sort of plastic covering coming off the display, not doing too well. And that phone, priced at nearly $2,000, you really want it to work well if you're going to spend that kind of money on it. Lastly, a look at Australia. That's one of the few markets this morning which is trading higher. That's making gains of 0.7%. Right now, and that's largely led by financials and energy producers, as of course after oil's rally. Back to you.
Thanks so much for that, Rosalind. Well, that oil rally is what might just work against Indian markets at this moment. It's obviously a big concern here in India with regard to the current account deficit and the movement of inflation. But let's talk about that a little bit. Brent crude surged to a 6-month high overnight after the U.S. Essentially announced that it would be scrapping the waivers it gave to certain countries that allowed them to import crude from Iran. Aaron Clark of Bloomberg News talks about the decision and its implications.
I think the decision really caught a lot of these big Asian consumers off guard. I think many of them expected the waivers to be extended, at least in some form, so it's a bit of a surprise. Obviously, like you said, the biggest question is going to be China. Can the U.S. get China on board to eliminate its Iran oil imports? There's been some speculation by analysts that China won't eliminate entirely their Iranian imports, but they may reduce them. But anyway, that's a big question that the market is going to be looking at is to what extent China does or doesn't cut its Iran imports. Bloomberg did speak to one South Korean refiner, and they said that they're looking at alternative supplies, but they did say that it's likely to increase costs. So that's one aspect, that's one factor that you could see impacting Asian refiners. Of course, the flip side of this, if you look on the other side of the globe, a lot of the U.S. shale producers are benefiting. They added billions of dollars in market share yesterday after this announcement and as prices rose. So we're beginning to see some of the winners and losers in Asia and North America as a result of this decision.
Aaron, let's talk a little bit more about the supply side, though. How's this going to affect the OPEC Plus deal? Is it all over for the production cuts?
Yeah, that's a big question. Along with this announcement, Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates said that they were able to boost supplies to the market by 1.5 million barrels a day. That would potentially, supplement the market if Iranian exports of 1.1 million barrels a day are eliminated. But clearly, it's going to be harder to ask other members to continue to cut supplies if Saudi Arabia boosts its exports and production. Of course, OPEC and its allies, including Russia, began curbing supplies from January, and that deal was expected to last through the first 6 months of this year. So I think it's much more difficult to continue with that deal and maintain discipline for OPEC and its allies if Saudi Arabia and the UAE boost production in response to this.
Now, India, of course, is the second largest importer of crude oil from Iran. So that affects, or the decision to remove those waivers affects India directly. But also the larger aspect of higher oil prices could, in fact, skew the current account deficit and, in fact, push inflation higher. And all of those aspects came into play in the currency markets and in the bond markets yesterday. In fact, the rupee closed at an over 1 month low at just about 69.67 against the US dollar. And the 10-year benchmark, the yields on the 10-year benchmark spiked about 5 basis points in yesterday's session to close at close to 7.5%. So those are the factors that are likely to be in focus today for those two markets as well. But definitely the equity markets also have something to factor in with regard to the global oil prices. Agam Vakil is here to tell you more about that and, of course, what's happening in the futures and options space. Morning, Agam. How are we looking today?
Well, consolidation is what is expected, Alex, considering some very sharp moves on the final hour of trade yesterday. For now, we're seeing SGX Nifty trade flat. And when it comes to our markets yesterday, we did see a very sharp drop in indices, 1.4% gone for the Nifty, and much sharper declines for the small cap and the mid cap indices. The banking index as well did see considerable cuts coming through, with the PSU banking index down 2.5%. And for now, ADRs are not showing any encouraging signs. Vedanta, ICICI Bank, Tata Motors, HDFC Bank all declining in trade, and marginal gains for Infosys and Wipro. But moving on, we really didn't see any moment, if you can call it that, considering there was very little activity from FIs and DIs going into trade. Moreover, when it comes to your contribution, it was heavyweights like Reliance Industries, HDFC, Twins, as well as ICICI Bank bearing down on the indices, along with, of course, a whole host of other stocks. Of course, Infosys and TCS, along with Wipro, did stand out on account of the weakening rupee against the US dollar. But in terms of futures and options, well, we are in expiry week, which is why we are looking at unwinding of 13% in OI. And moving on for the Nifty banking futures, it's the same. And well, when it comes to your open interest distribution, currently, well, we are now starting to see considerable OI build up around the 11,700 call, and that is likely to, well, act as an immediate resistance level on the lower end. As you can see, we're seeing some amount of concerns coming through. But when it comes to changes in OI, again, as one might expect, a little more writing around the 11,700 call. Well, the WIX is getting extremely high, and well, we've seen another 6% added as far as WIX is concerned, now at 24. The highest in the, perhaps 7 months that we've seen. The WIX is, the Nifty put call ratio at around 1.34 versus 1.57. IDBI Bank, Vodafone Idea are in the F&O ban, as is the case for PC Jeweler and Reliance Capital. And Adani Power, DLF, and Jet Airways moves back into the F&O ban. So watch out for that, considering the substantial shorts that we've seen. Well, not too much to speak for in terms of those stocks which are seeing OI addition, but in unwinding, there will be plenty. MRF, IGL, Bharat Forge, and Shree Cement. All, of course, this is largely an account of the fact that we are in expiry week. So there are underlying trends of weakness, Alex, but for now, we're going to have to wait and see if consolidation continues.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for that, Agam. Well, let's have a look at what's making headlines across the globe. Sue Keenan of Bloomberg News brings you the first word headlines.
Sri Lanka, which is blaming a domestic jihadist group for Sunday's wave of bombings and admits that foreign intelligence had shared warnings beforehand. However, the government is questioning how a small homegrown group could have struck across the country and is looking at possible assistance from abroad. The blast killed 290 people and wounded almost 500 more, with several foreigners among the victims. At least 8 people were killed by a powerful earthquake in the Philippines. The magnitude 6.3 tremor struck northwest of Manila late on Monday afternoon, and about 30 people are feared trapped in a collapsed supermarket. Several parts of Luzon suffered power outages. Clark Airport was ordered to close for 24 hours, but the Manila Stock Exchange will be open for trading on Tuesday. A Lebanese company is said to be at the the center of alleged payments linking Nissan and Renault to a firm related to former Nissan chairman Carlos Ghosn and his son. We're told Beirut-based Good Faith Investments facilitated transfers to another company connected to the pair. Prosecutors in Japan have indicted Ghosn for misdirecting Nissan funds for personal use, as well as other offenses. He has continued to deny any financial misconduct. China's grandiose Belt and Road Initiative is getting a makeover. This after allegations of corruption and unsustainability at some high-profile projects. Beijing is exerting more control over the program and will introduce a lower-profile publicity drive, with several Western countries wary of China's rising global influence. Global leaders are in Beijing this week for the second Belt and Road Forum. Samsung, meanwhile, is delaying the launch of its revolutionary folding smartphone. This amid reports of failing screens and other faults. The Galaxy Fold, as it is called, was to have rolled out in the U.S. on Friday, but that debut has been postponed with no new date announced. Several publications, including Bloomberg, had reported a range of problems with test versions of the near $2,000 device after only days of use. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Sue Keenan. This is Bloomberg.
All right, well, if you're buying a $2,000 phone, it better work, right? But let's talk about some other news. The National Profiteering Authority has charged multinational FMCG major Procter Gamble with making undue profits to the tune of 250 crore rupees by not passing on the benefit of GST rate cuts to customers. Sources told Bloomberg Quint that the lower taxes on products like detergents and shampoos were not passed on to consumers. Nikunjori gets us more details in this report.
The government's GST probe body has found P&G of making undue profits worth 250 crore rupees by not passing on the benefit of GST rate reduction on FMCG products to consumers. The Directorate General of Anti-Profiteering, in its finding to the National Anti-Profiteering Authority, has said that the company did not pass on the benefit of GST rate reduction on detergents and shampoos that the company makes and has profited worth 250 crore rupees by not passing on this benefit to the consumers. The findings of DGAP have been submitted to the National Anti-Profiteering Authority, and the NAA has already started hearing the case. Besides this, DGAP has also sought to extend the investigation against the company to check whether P&G has passed on the benefit of GST rate reduction on sanitary napkins as well. Remember, GST on sanitary napkins was reduced from 12% to 0 in July last year, and the DGAP is trying to find out whether the company has passed on this benefit to consumers or not. Remember, P&G makes sanitary napkins under the brand name of Whisper. Over to you.
All right, well, one of the big talking points or news updates from last evening, let's talk about that now. The Blackstone Group will buy a controlling stake in SL Propack. This is a company promoted by Ashok Goel, who is the younger brother of Subhash Chandra, who in fact owns SL Group companies like Z Entertainment. So, will the Subhash Chandra Group benefit from the deal? Agam Vakil is here to tell you about the contours of the deal and, in fact, what it could mean for the Subhash Chandra companies. Agam, over to you.
Right, that's right, Alex. So as you mentioned, Blackstone will buy 51% stake from the Ashok Goel Trust in SL Propack. Ashok Goel Trust holds as much as 57% in SL Propack as of now, and this purchase will be done at a rate of 134 rupees per share. The current market price is around the same at about 133.5 rupees per share. And this, of course, the India's takeover code makes it mandatory for an open offer, which means that Blackstone will also launch an open offer for 26%, but the open offer price will be slightly higher at around 139.2 rupees per share, which is at a 5% premium to the current market price. We're also keeping an eye on how the company is going to use these funds, but as Ashok Goel has suggested that well, these funds for now there hasn't been as much mention about the usage of funds, but as far as Blackstone is concerned, they are very clear that they have invested into the company for the prospects of consumer goods in general, considering this company is in packaging, and that they stand to benefit from this one. On the other hand, the Ashok Goel Trust stands to make at least 2,100 crores from their stake sale. So, we're going to have to wait and watch as to how they use these funds going ahead.
All right, thanks so much for that, Agam. Well, let's talk about some of the other stocks in news. Mishika Parak is joining me now to tell you all about that. Morning, Mishika. What's on your list today?
Good morning, Alex. I'm going to start with the important earnings. Lux Industries came in with a strong set of numbers. Their revenues were up 16% at 386 crore rupees. Net profit is up 24% at 38 crores, which was due to higher other income. EBITDA is down 2.4% at 56 crores, and their margins are stand at 14.6% compared to 17.4%, and the margins were dented because of higher costs. There was an inventory loss of 86 crores in the current quarter. Then we have Tejas Networks, which also came in with a decent set of numbers. Their revenues are up 3 times at 273 crores. The net profit is up 9.5% at 36 crores. EBITDA is up 5 times at 53 crores, and margins stand at 19% versus 10.5%. There was a deferred tax income of 24 crores in the base quarter. Tejas Networks achieved their 20% revenue growth guidance for FY19, and this guidance was achieved after 6 quarters of missed expectations. Then we have AU Small Finance Bank, which came in with very good results. Their net interest income is up 35% at 387 crores. Their net profit is up 42% at 118 crores. GNPA is at 2.04% versus 2.09% quarter on quarter. And NNPA is at 1.29% versus 1.31% quarter on quarter. The PAT was lower. The PAT was higher due to lower provisioning and higher NII. GAIL emerges as the highest bidder for IL&FS wind energy assets and offers 4,800 crore rupees for portfolio of wind assets. Then McClure Russell executes sale agreement for specified assets from its 3 estates to Lakshmi Tea for 150 crore rupees. And lastly, Biocon to consider issuing of bonus shares on April 25th.
Thanks so much for that, Mishika. Well, let's talk about elections now. 116 seats, 13 states, and over 1,600 candidates polling for phase 3 of the Lok Sabha polls. That's begun just a short while back. This phase, remember, has the most number of seats across the 7 phases. Apart from the 116 seats, the sensitive constituency of Anantnag in Jammu and Kashmir will see voting take place across 3 phases. Tamanna Inamdar gets us up to speed with everything that we need to know about this phase of the polls.
The third phase of the big Indian elections is the one with the most seats so far. Here is what you need to watch out for in phase 3. So 116 seats will go to vote in 12 states and 2 union territories in phase 3, with over 1,600 candidates in the fray. Now here's why this phase of the elections is so interesting, is because 2 states, all the seats in the states of Gujarat and Kerala will also vote in phase 3. Between the two, that's a block of 46 seats, apart from key ones in other states, of course. Let's come to Gujarat first. Now, in 2014, riding high on Gujarati Asmita and the excitement of sending their chief minister to Delhi, the state gave the BJP a score of 26 on 26. But even at its depths then, the Congress still held on to a 33% vote share. The 2017 assembly polls showed BJP how rural distress could really anger voters, and the party will be hoping voters give give greater weightage to Modi's re-election as PM rather than issues of rural distress and joblessness. Let's come to Kerala, and which is another interesting factor in phase 3. All 20 seats, of course, go to polls in this phase. In a state where the fight is essentially between the Congress and the left. The UDF, which is the Congress alliance, bagged 12 out of 20 seats in 2014, despite anti-UPA sentiments before that election. This time round, the BJP is hoping to open its account in Kerala, riding on the Sabrimala issue. That brings us to, of course, the big contests in this phase 3. There are a lot of them, but we've narrowed it down to some of the key ones. It's exciting because it's also battle of the presidents, party presidents, that is. Amit Shah makes his Lok Sabha debut from the seat of Gandhinagar. That's a safe seat for the BJP. LK Advani won from here 6 times, but did not get a ticket this time round. The BJP president faces off against C.G. Chawda of the Congress in this seat. Congress President Rahul Gandhi also faces the voters of Wayanad, now famous for different, sort of strategies of what its population is and the composition of its population is. Rahul Gandhi goes up against P.P. Sunir of the CPI. He's promised not to attack the left, but the left is in no mood to return that favor. Let's look at some of the other key seats, and Kerala is very exciting also because of this seat. Shashi Tharoor versus Kummanam Rajasekharan in the Thiruvananthapuram seat. Shashi Tharoor is trying his best to hold on to this seat, but will face a tough challenge from the BJP. Mr. Rajasekharan was the governor of Mizoram till recently and has been brought in especially for a fight with Shashi Tharoor. Well, another big seat where the BJP is hoping for gains is in the seat of Patanam Tita, where the Sabrimala temple is located. Of course, they've made this a big issue. It's featured in their manifesto as well. And K. Surendran of the BJP goes up against Anto Antony here. It will be interesting to see if the Sabrimala issue has really resonated with voters here. Let's move to Karnataka, where the key fight is in Kalburgi. Mallikarjun Kharge, who was the leader of opposition in the outgoing Lok Sabha, faces up against Umesh Jadhav of the BJP. Uttara Kannada is the other big seat over here that we're keeping an eye on. Union Minister and controversial one at that, Anant Kumar Hegde, goes up against Anand Asnotikar, who till 2018 was with the BJP and then hopped on to the JDS. So that'll be an interesting battle. Let's come to Maharashtra and Baramati. This is a Pawar family stronghold where Sharad Pawar's daughter Supriya Sude is hoping to be re-elected and faces up against Kanchan Kul of the BJP. Let's come to Kashmir, another one of the key seats that we've selected for you. And here Anantnag, which goes to polls in 3 phases because of security concerns, sees former Chief Minister Mehbooba Mufti trying to woo back voters. She goes up against Ghulam Ahmad Mir of the Indian National Conference, of the Indian National Congress. It's going to be a tough fight for Mehbooba Mufti, and she's hoping voters will not punish her for having allied with the BJP in her state government until the government came apart. And the last battle we've picked for you is the fight in Puri, Odisha, where it's the battle of the spokespersons. You possibly think that these two faces are familiar because you've seen them on nightly TV debates. Sambit Patra of the BJP is making his Lok Sabha debut against Pinaki Mishra of the Biju Janata Dal, who also often appears on television debates. This is going to be an interesting match, especially seeing how Sambit Patra has made sure he is in the media space through his campaign. But will it be enough to outshout voters and attract them in phase 3? That's the big question.
Well, of course, do stay tuned. We'll bring you all the updates on the elections. In fact, there's also the election soundtrack in case you want to listen to some interesting tidbits about the ongoing elections. You'll find that on our SoundCloud page. But let's talk about something else. Most people who live to be 100 years old probably won't be strutting around the ballroom or stretching themselves on a yoga mat. But this 100-year-old competitive ballroom dancer and yoga teacher embodies hashtag goals. Take a look.
Move it over your humps and up and stretch. When I wake up in the morning, I look at the sun and I say, this is going to be the best day of my life. And it will be. It always is. Breathe in the breath of life and breathe out peace. So I wake up with the joy of life, knowing it's ready to go inside of me. And so I see all of my students that are so precious to me and that have done so much to keep me doing things in life. And so that's why I'm here today. If there is something that's in there that's good, go into it. Don't just spend your time thinking about it. Inhale, lift up, and out the side.
So while you're thinking about what you'll do when you're 100, let me take you through a few stories that you'll find on the website today. The Income Tax Department has detected a tax evasion of more than 1,350 crore rupees during search and seizure operations conducted against Hindustan Power Projects Private Limited, which is a company owned by the nephew of Madhya Pradesh Chief Minister Kamal Nath. That's a PTI report that quoted unnamed sources. And the Directorate General of Anti-Profiteering has charged Procter Gamble with undue profiteering to the extent of 250 crore rupees, and that was done apparently by not passing on the benefit of tax rate cuts to consumers. A spokesperson of P&G, however, told Bloomberg Quint that the company has passed on the net benefit of GST rate reduction and even advertised it to create awareness among customers. Well, that's all you need to know going into trade today. I told you already there's a lot of updates in the world of politics and in fact in business and markets. So do stay tuned. This is Bloomberg Quint.